JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Friday, August 16th, 8:55. Got about 35 minutes to the open. Talk about the market, some of the names I'm looking at, some of the names I traded yesterday, and go from there. But what a massive reversal from last Monday lows. Another monster rally yesterday on the heels of the strong retail sales data, the best number since April 2022. Weekly jobless claims also came in lower than expected. So it kind of erases the narrative around the July unemployment numbers coming in much worse than expected. But then this morning we have housing starts, building permits down year over year in July. They also backward revisions to the previous months. And now all those folks who've been chirping about the R word, recession, they have more ammo. So now we have to wait to the data from August out in September to kind of see if this is a trend or if this is uh, yeah, really the start of something big. Because I mean the housing, that's the big part of I mean obviously 2008, but when there's that you could probably construe more in regards to the housing side than if it was the retail sales side. But I guess we'll have to see. But markets pull back. They were already pulling back before the data came out at 8:30, and have since hit. S&P is down about 0.5%. I always say this. I actually prefer lowered opens. Not I prefer not 1 or 2% opens, but when they do happen, they tend to offer some nice bounce opportunities. So we'll see. Hopefully, we get some Hodor at the 550 handle and we can bounce. I put it on the watch this morning. I think 550 and 553 probably the chop zone today. I think that'll actually bode well for more highs into next week. But this building permits will give ammo to the shorts and to those fear mongers who are going to post all the bearish narratives over the weekend, which they always tend to do when there's some kind of negative data piece that points or confirms their bias of downside, right? So that's the markets. That's all I'll be watching. If you look on the flip side, 555, that's probably gonna be a tough nut to crack. That maybe next week, if there's no weekend shenanigans, I put that on the watch list as well. Yeah, you have to worry what's going on in the geopolitical concerns, not only in Ukraine and Russia, but in the Middle East. Iran's still posturing. At some point, something might happen or come to a head. And if it does, it typically, for some reason, it's almost like they plan it. It happens over the weekend, right? So I just hope it's not this weekend, and I hope there's nothing, right? I mean, I hope the best for everybody in the world, that nothing, there's no conflict, that people don't lose lives, things like that. Uh, Also, so some I always say the silver lining, but small caps finally start to outperform yesterday, up nearly 2.6%, back over that 200-day and 50-day moving average on the IWM. Would be a great sign if that there's some continuation today. It doesn't look like it just yet. Small caps are gapping down with the rest of the market, but maybe if we can get a bounce, I think that'll bode well. And then last but not least is the VIX, and just a massive reversal as well. On the other end, from instead of it being from down to up like the markets, the VIX was from up to down and all the way up to 65 back last Monday and all the way down under 15 yesterday. But it's above 15 here today. I think if anything under 18 is good for right now. So yeah, a lot of that volatility came out after the CPI data on Wednesday. More came out yesterday, and now it's sitting here at 1564. Still going to be eyeing the VIX here, but if it churns between 15, 1650 or so, I think nothing, no concern there. All right, so individual names, and of course I'll start with SE. Another monster, well, nice rally on the heels of its earnings 2 sessions ago, closed up 3%, right near that 80 handle. I went and closed some more of my 80 strikes out for, I think, a little over 300, 400%. And then I also went and got some September strikes. I was actually looking at October 95s, but I thought the risk reward on the Septembers looked better. Not to say that I don't think it could add a digit at some point in the coming weeks. I just think if it gets into the mid 80s and 90s, will return better in regards to profit, multi-bagging opportunities. They were less expensive, so I went and got those. 80, it was $80 in the pre-market here this morning. I think it'd be a good sign here if it's 80 plus. I always, unfortunately, when you're trading some of these ADRs and foreign stocks that are based on foreign exchange, foreign demand, supply, consumers, and all that fun stuff. There's concern when not only is there if there's a slowdown in Asia, China, there's some tensions there, what have you. So that's always kind of the thing in the back of my head when I try and get calls on some of these names. Like, well, I mean, Baidu and Baba are great examples, but I think it's doing well, and I'm trying to get a comparison side to side in return in regards to Melly and NetEase and some other names that might be good comparisons, so you can see how undervalued I think SE is, especially now that their e-commerce business is going to flip into the profit side. You look at them like if they spin that off, is that a $30 billion, $40 billion company on its own, right? And then you look at their financial business and gaming business, which throws off hundreds of millions of dollars in profits. They have $9 billion in cash. I mean, I can keep going on, but I really like this one over 80 bucks. Hopefully today, hopefully an 80 and hold. I'll look to close some more of my 80 strikes out. And then if I get the chance to lock some of my September strikes into cover costs, I'll do the same. But I put on the watch list. Really like this story right now, especially it's I talk about tipping points in stocks and companies, and I always talk about. I don't know how many times I've talked about on rants in regards to Roku, but I think the tipping point right now just happened for SE, and I think it's just the start of a massive. It's gonna be a cash cow. So that's SE. Uh, yeah, not what else to talk about. Dell, my $100 strikes I added last week, right around the afternoon last week, on Friday. Those were up. They were up over 2,500% at times. Can't you can't cry over spilled milk. I had a plan. You never know what's going to happen with the markets. It's always you never get you can't lose money if you lock the profits in, right? So thankfully, I rolled the 110s for next week. So I rolled some into those, locked some of those in for some nice profits as well. Still held a couple. I might look to add some more strikes. They announced their earnings date, which will be on August 29th, so 2 weeks from yesterday. So I may get some calls to encompass that. Some targets, I mean, 115, 117, I don't think is out of the question. You start looking at the 50-day moving averages at 125. Does it get to 125 before earnings? I don't know. It might be a name to play for some more premium build. There might be some chop here today, but I may look for some strikes to get to encompass earnings. So maybe not to August 30s, probably further out. Hope for some premium build. And then I think after earnings, they're gonna report a beat and raise. I think that's kind of like a foregone conclusion, at least in my head. It's the concern around the servers, right? The big narrative around Dell and the reason most of the reason why it sold off after earnings, or I think probably 100% of the reason it sold off after earnings was that one of the comments in the conference call when the analyst started running the numbers and was able to figure out that pretty much Dell is making $0 on their servers, their server business, right? So again, I always use this analogy too. It's like Dell is not a non-for-profit company. So if you're the leader of your company, you're not making money on a segment unless you foresee that segment is going to be extremely profitable going forward. You don't do that segment anymore, right? So it's hard to think that's going to be the status quo for Dell. Zero profits on their servers. So anyway, so I think there'll definitely be an opportunity. So don't be surprised if you see me add more strikes. Finally got into Clear Secure yesterday. I mean, this thing's been on a monster tear. It's closing at 52-week highs. I think it's up 40-something% over the last 7 sessions. I think it keeps heading higher. This is a name I've watched for so long and always thought it was undervalued based on not only its growth, its compounded annual growth rate, its profits, its fundamentals, its zero debt, tons of cash, throwing off special dividend, doing stock buybacks, partnership with TSA now, so they do a TSA plus. Lots of areas of growth that they can get into. I just, I can go on and on about this one, but don't be surprised if I add some higher strikes, maybe even 35s, especially even if the market's weak today and Clear closes green again. I think it just shows that this is going to continue to go. And I look at fair values at $40, maybe 45, even higher. And I also mentioned they've been doing stock buybacks. So a lot of the shares that have been issued either for stock compensation or things like that have been bought back by the company and retired. So there hasn't been dilution. If anything, share count has gone down. So yeah, longer rants for other days, but really like Clear Secure. Baidu, Baba reversed. I put on the watch list yesterday morning. I thought if Baba reversed, Baidu would get a serious bid. It did close up 2% yesterday, but didn't do what I thought it would do, which would be an overshoot to 88, 89. I got more spec calls. I also added some strikes into next week for earnings. They'll report earnings, I believe it's Thursday after the close. China stocks actually rallied overnight, so I'm surprised You look at Baba, and Baba was up in the pre-market. I don't have it on my straight watch list here. Oh, it's up near 82 bucks. I'm surprised that Baidu's not getting more of a bid here this morning. Uh, Baba got plenty, JP Morgan, Truist, Bard, Bernstein, they're all coming out with upgrades, or at least price target upgrades on Baba. I mean, all these analysts have been bullish on Baba a long time ago. So there's no change of their opinion or analysis. It's just Baba's at right near, well, not right near, but it's off its lows. I think Baba at some point trades in the 900s. It's not a name I trade, so I'm not going to get calls on that one. But hopefully there's some follow through and sympathy move here on Baidu. It gets it, if Baba's up a couple percent today, I think Baidu is going to trade up near 90. So not going to add anything more into earnings next week, but hopefully, even if rallies today, Monday, Tuesday, I can lock some of my calls for next week and cover the costs, or at least I can ride into earnings for free. Well, I actually have the September's, right? So I'm sorry about that, folks. Yeah, so I have plenty of time. So hopefully I can get some premium builds on the Baidu strikes, lock some in, cover costs, ride the rest free for earnings. That's Baidu. And then other names. I keep talking about PayPal and Square, and sure enough, PayPal's up 3 sessions in a row, right past its earnings gap high, a gap move. Think that heads to 70 bucks, so may look for some strikes there. Could be spec calls, especially on any weakness at the open today. A block is finally over its 50-day moving average. The last time it broke over its 50-day moving average back in the middle, or right near the first couple of weeks of July, it embarked on a $10 rally from 65 up to, well, nearly $10, 65 to 74. Deja vu here, maybe. It closed right over it at 64 and change. I think a move at least to 70 bucks, so don't be surprised if you see me add more strikes on that one. And then last but not least, AMD. And I haven't traded AMD since its move to the upside back at when did I did it for earnings, and I also traded it middle of July. But could be an opportunity here. If you look, and actually it's got a death cross right now. But so death cross is when the 50-day crosses under the 200-day moving average. But if that reverses and then finds a bid here, maybe 150 plus, if it breaks over that, I think it starts heading higher. And there's a lot of chatter around similar reasons why I like Dell, because Dell has not performed to the same level that Nvidia has this year and over the last couple of years. AMD is kind of, and I always call it like the stepchild, right? It's not it's chips and graphic processors, things like that are, they're not as costly as Nvidia. So if a lower cost company wants to do servers and not spend 30 to 40 grand per processor, graphic card, whatever you want to call it, they'll go to AMD, and theirs is only 10,000 to 15,000. So, and they still perform pretty well. So I'm not saying that AMD is going to go on 140, 150% run here, but it's when you see me add the calls on it, especially in July when I did it, it's not that I think it's the next Nvidia. It's just that I think it's underappreciated by the market. That's it, folks. We have about 22 minutes to the open. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.